who's in, who's out. And we're not talking about the college football playoffs. We're talking about who's playing and who's not. And what's going to come of all of this? You can read my piece at CrescentCitySports.com about this craziness and uncertainty that we find ourselves in the midst of. Joining us to talk about it, our good and great friend Jacques Doucet from WAFB in Baton Rouge. Jacques, it's always a pleasure. I hope you're sorting through all of this and trying to keep score and getting all convoluted in the process with the alphabet soup of ACC, SEC, MWC, MAC. I don't know. I'm lost at this point. Help me out here, man. Good to have you with us.
Yeah, good to be with you. I'm standing outside of the brand-new Torchy's Tacos right across the street from Tiger Stadium, and I'm looking at Death Valley right now. There's a cool breeze blowing. It's making me kind of yearn for fall and college football, and I hope we have it in some capacity. It really is kind of a heart versus the head thing right now. Visited with Chad Loop yesterday, a former LSU quarterback who's now a doctor, and Nacho Albergamo, a former LSU center who's a doctor too. These guys love football more than anyone and want to see it, but then at the same time, is it the right decision to make? There are so many different opinions on this virus and how dangerous it is and isn't. It's just a real frustrating time to just be. Seems like we're just getting told no every day. But at least yesterday, Kenny, the Big 12, really kind of saved the day, at least for the moment, in the fact that they're going to move forward and try to do a season. And so the ACC has been pretty steadfast. We're going to play. The SEC, as we all know, wants to play. And I actually talked to Les Miles today, former LSU head coach, who's the head coach at Kansas, and so he knows he can move forward in the Big 12. So there is some positive news.
Well, there is, and obviously it's fluid. The whole thing can change by next week. But I wrote about it today at CrescentCitySports.com. It's amazing to me to see the differences that exist. One of the things that's certainly noticeable, and I can't stand people politicizing sports in the sense that, everything is political about it. It's not. People are making these decisions based on the best information they have, not based on politics. But what we're seeing is that the West and the North are clearly siding on the side of not playing, at least until the spring. And I think that is largely dubious at best, in my opinion, playing in the spring. More on that to come. Meanwhile, anybody that has any participation or any membership from the South has left the door wide open to play. That includes Conference USA. That includes the American with Tulane and Houston and the like. That includes the SEC, obviously. It includes the ACC, of course. It includes the Big 12 that has Texas and Oklahoma State, just to name a few. So it's pretty interesting the way the geography at this point has separated itself in terms of who wants to play and who's not going to play.
Yeah, and that's interesting in the fact of, Kenny, if I was in the Big Ten, spring football in the Big Ten, Kenny, that ain't spring, okay? If they're going to try to play in January and February, I mean, it is going to be freezing cold. It's going to be miserable. And I just don't think that's going to – I think that there's very little confidence that they're going to, be able to pull that off. And if you're a Jamar Chase, for example, or a guy of that caliber, why would you try to play in the spring when the NFL draft is right around the corner and risk injury and all those different things? But, yeah, you're right. It does seem that I think I read that somewhere where it seems like the states who have more Democratic control are the ones who don't want to play, and the ones who have Republican control want to play. So, there's a lot of different viewpoints in terms of who the Republicans are rooting for and who the Democrats are rooting for in the grand scheme of things and what they want to happen. But that's where we are.
Jacques Doucet with us from WAFB. So many moving parts about this. First of all, how'd you like to be affiliated with the Rose Bowl right now?
Oh, man. Yeah. Just your whole world just turned upside down, and it's just depressing. I mean, you want to tell me, hey, you take football too seriously, or football's too big an important part of your life? Yeah, guilty. Okay. I think there's just the Rose Bowl such a huge part of our New Year's Day or whenever that game falls now with the new college football playoff and LSU football. There's just this, Kenny. There's an energy, there's a spirit, there's a life force that just bounces around this city during football season. You can feel it on Monday, you can feel it on Wednesday and Thursday when the RVs start coming in and the people start coming in and the restaurants start bumping around and the game's on Saturday and then on Sunday, hey, where are we in the polls today? How's the game look for next week? It's just something that we love, and for it to be in the air, it's just it's depressing. And you got the college, the high school kids, Eddie Bonine, God bless him, and those people trying to navigate this thing and trying to dance around the New Orleans Bowl and the Sugar Bowl possibly to try to play state championships in the Dome. I don't envy anybody right now being in these situations and trying to figure it out.
No, and as I wrote today, everybody wants to define right and wrong, and I don't think there's right and wrong involved here. People are trying to make the best decisions they can based on the information they have. Those that err on the side of safety, I completely get it. Those that err on the side of let's kick the can down the road, let's let it play out, I completely get it. In the final analysis, I think everybody wants to see games and wants to see people play. There's just a disagreement as to whether or not it's the right thing to do. So let's talk about some of the moving parts here that I referred to. Number one, the whole transfer portal issue. If you're going to play in some conferences and you're not going to play in others, would you consider entering the transfer portal? Well, several reasons not to. Number one, unless you get a waiver, you got to sit out a year, right? Number two, you're in a situation where is the grass really greener on the other side? And that's a huge question mark as well. And then the biggest question of all, if you decide you're going to do that, and then in 2 or 3 weeks, the school from the conference you might want to transfer to decides they're not going to play, their conference shuts it down, then what good is that? So I don't think that's much of a factor at all, do you?
No, I don't. I mean, there's been some irony and some jokes on Twitter about, imagine Justin Field at Georgia. Well, he was at Georgia and he left, and now the school he's at is not playing. And of course, the guy was a Heisman Trophy finalist last year, one win away from the national championship, so he's doing pretty well for himself. But yeah, I mean that's all out there. It's kind of crazy, Kenny, that the Big Ten and the Pac-12 have tapped out, and yet the Southland Conference at this point, I think they're having a meeting tomorrow, but they're, the Nicholls States and the Northwesterns, the McNeeses of the world, they've been practicing and moving full speed ahead. Coach O's got a son on the McNeese team at this point, and so yeah, I mean I interviewed at least a couple of parents yesterday, Tyrone Davis, Price's parents, and Jack Atkins, the father of Avery Atkins, LSU's a touchback machine on kickoffs, and they all say, look, our kids are safer at LSU right now than they would be anywhere else. If we get sick, we're going to stand in line at the hospital, stand in line at the pharmacy, or whatever it is. These guys have the best treatment in the world. Kind of like Mike the Tiger, Kenny. People say, that poor tiger, take him out of that habitat. He's the most pampered tiger in the world. If you're at LSU, you're getting first-class treatment, and so that's just kind of where it is right now. But I don't like the transfer portal. I'm not a fan of it. I just don't like the fact that you can have a bad day at practice or my coach yelled at me, so I'm upset tonight. I'm going to enter the transfer portal. I don't think it teaches the right lesson. I think you should stick it out at least a little while before you make it the huge decision that I'm leaving my school.
Then there's the issue of the 6th year of eligibility. I'm all for that. Most people are not going to play in the NFL or get that chance. The biggest issue with the 6th year of eligibility is it hampers your next recruiting class because you have the limit right at 25 that you can possibly bring in. That's going to affect that unquestionably if you allow it.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that. That there's a discussion. So there's people have debated a 6 year of eligibility in college.
Yes, yeah, that's being openly talked about at this point. Yes.
Well, certainly there were some Alabama kickers that played a decade at Alabama. I know that for sure, right?
And none of them are any good either.
Right.
Alabama's been the best program in the country, and when are they ever going to get a really good kicker, right? So.
I was chatting with Brandon Harris the other day, and I was going over the 2015 game they played over there, and Alabama made a 55-yard field goal right before half. I had no memory of that. I could not believe that as I was reading that out loud. They made a 55-yarder. But, yeah, you could always count on Bama, doinking a 25-yarder off the goalpost. And the Alabama media people looking around saying, we've got the best program in the country, and we cannot get a kicker. So, year after year.
Amazing.
So.
All right, so then you've got the playing in the spring concept. So here are the issues that come up. The NFL calendar. What about the Senior Bowl? What about the scouting combine? What about campus workout days for scouts? What about the NFL draft in April? What about the NFL offseason training activities, the OTAs and mini camps? What about NFL training camp in July and the preseason in August? And you think about the wear and tear on the body of playing in the spring, risking injury, then leaping straight into an NFL camp. If you're a top prospect, you're not going to play in the spring, as you said earlier. But even if you're a middle-of-the-road guy that has at least a shot, would you opt out or would you take a chance given all the different circumstances I just mentioned? And I think the NFL would move things to make it happen because college football is its lifeblood, but still there's so many difficulties of trying to do this in the spring.
Yeah, we were joking this afternoon. I was talking to Jamar Chase's dad, Jimmy. I was like, this could be like the 1987 NFL season, like the strike. These guys got these these somewhat no-names got these big opportunities because other guys weren't out there, And I just think from an LSU standpoint, this campus. I mean, if you got LSU baseball going on, which you and I know draw 9, 10, 11,000 fans for a given game, and then a football game's going to fall on the same weekend, and basketball plays typically games into March on the campus, and security and parking and staffing and all those different kind of things. It's just, it's just a lot. It'd be a lot to take on, for sure. But for real quick, for a program like Southern, the SWAC, where no discredit, but a lot of those guys, obviously not going to the NFL. I think Dawson Owens is right. It could be exciting. Great spring weather, barbecue. Hey, let's have a football game on a Saturday night in March. This is cool. I think it could work for them, but for the bigger schools like LSU, I just don't know.
Then the evaluation prospect takes place, and you tried to figure out who your players are, and all you have to do is point to Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow, going into the 2019 season, was projected as a late fifth-round pick, maybe an early sixth-round pick. We all know what kind of season he had. We all know where he got selected. That's how important it is to have the playing dates, to put your product on video so that you can be evaluated. So if you do that in the fall, it's obvious you can, and it's no problem. If you try to do it in the spring, totally different animal when you're evaluating.
Yeah, it's funny, your Facebook memories pop up, and earlier this year around January 1st or whatever, Facebook memory popped up, and it was me and our photographer Darren DeQuano chatting with Joe Burrow at the Fiesta Bowl all by ourselves. It's just the two of us chatting with him, and I said, boy, what has changed in a year? We went to the playoff game in Oklahoma, against Oklahoma and Atlanta, and just the mobs of people around Joe Burrow and how much everything changed with him. So, yeah, there's no doubt. And also just for the other guys who have always, grew up in Louisiana or wherever and just dreamed of running out of that Tiger Stadium tunnel. That they don't get many Saturdays to do that, and so that's the kind of thing when I hear about people wanting these guys to get paid and this and that, and I understand there's an argument for that, but man, you get the opportunity of a lifetime, you get a scholarship, you get your tuition paid for, you're eating at a Taj Mahal, and then once you're done playing, you can either go make big money in the NFL or in the business world or whatever, to recognize your name. Oh, yeah, you're that former LSU Tiger. I just think, when those experiences get taken away, too, that's just a real bad thing.
Some play in the fall and some play in the spring. If people play in the fall, I have to believe that the bowl system will remain intact, and because it's way too much trouble to move things for them. And then secondly, you couldn't possibly have a fall season and then a spring season and make those that played in the fall wait months to play in a national playoff. It would take place based upon those that competed in the fall. That only makes sense. So as a result, if that's the case and you don't have the Big Ten and you don't have the Pac-12, the likelihood of having more than one SEC team in the national playoff becomes very, very likely. but it also opens the door for the Group of Five conference members to perhaps get a team in, as has not been the case in recent times. Case in point, last year, the number 4 rated conference in America wasn't the ACC. It was the American Athletic Conference, which Tulane belongs to, which is a good league. And clearly, that would open the door for the Group of Five conference team to possibly make the national playoff.
Well, Kenny, you are schooling me on this. I am learning something on this phone call for sure. Not the you've got all the info. You've broken it down, and just and in another case, a Derek Stingley Jr. Okay, if LSU for whatever reason got postponed to the spring, is Derek Stingley Jr. going to play 2 college football seasons like in an 8-9 month period? I mean, he's going to play in the spring and then he's going to come back and play again in the fall when you're when you're as good as he is and have millions of dollars on the table in the future. There's just countless things to consider when it comes to all that. And yeah, you're right. I mean, the national championship this year was January the 13th. So we're going to have another national championship mid-January, and then Ohio State and Michigan are going to be kicking off like a week later or at the same time. And they weren't part of the party. We are in an unprecedented situation and something we'll be reflecting on for decades. But I just want to see teams play. I just want to see the sport. It's my favorite sport. I love all the sports, but to me, there's nothing like college football. I think it's the best.
Well, I'm with you. If they don't play, I fully understand. If there's no season at all, if some play and some don't, I understand. But that's terribly unfortunate. But if that happens, then you've got to reward the ones that do play and play when they were supposed to play. And therefore, that would determine your national playoff and thus the bowl games, and the Sugar Bowl is a semifinal this year. And clearly that should be what determines it, because with all due respect to the others, your conferences voted not to play, and others did. So if they all push back to the spring, well, then clearly you could wouldn't try to, but you would reschedule the bowl games and the playoffs. So that's a different animal. But again, the difficulty of that happening is just, I don't know. It's like this entire scenario that's unfolded for the last 4 or 5 months. It's a head scratcher. It's hard to figure out, and you have to look at things daily to try to formulate an opinion and understand where we're at.
Yeah, and you're going to have, you're going to have media outlets who are just going to be salivating to break stories on the first team that's a couple of guys have got it. And, they tested positive and trying to, wreck the thing. And I think we just have to, I know the thing is new and I know it's dangerous and all of that, but just the constant play-by-play every day over how many people have it and have caught it and this and that. I get it. I understand it. But there's just so many, eventually, Kenny, I don't know when it's going to be, but we can't say, well, if one life is lost, we can't. In that case, you can never get behind the wheel of your car again. You can never never get on an airplane. You can never just do all the things we enjoy in life. Eventually, we're going to have to come out. I don't know when that is, but hopefully this vaccine we get in the next few months and we can start to move ahead a little bit. But that's where it is.
I get it. I share a lot of the frustration, and yet I understand why people feel the way they do, and would love to see something happen that makes a difference here in the next few months. But it wouldn't shock me if this lingered into the early stages of next year. I hope I'm wrong, but we'll see what happens. 2 other things before we let you go. Paul Maneri is going to talk to the media on Friday. You got anything for us there? And any news on baseball, or just an impression of what Paul's going to say on Friday?
Kenny, a lot of people said that I got off easy this past season, like I was going to be fired or something, but that's not true at all. We didn't plan on going to Omaha, Kenny. That's just a quick love, Coach Maneri. Don't want to get in trouble for doing impersonations, but yeah, he's going to do a Zoom with us, so I don't know what he's going to talk about. Going to add a few more guys to the roster and whatever. Have a super stack team. I don't know. So we'll see on that. Beth Torina is the one who really took the big hit. Her softball team could have done some damage this year.
They were really good. She does a consistently good job. And speaking of that, the final person I wanted to get you to comment on is Dee Bro, because most people don't pay attention to gymnastics. LSU's had a really good program for a long time. Well, they've had a terrific coach. He's one of the most gregarious, outgoing, nicest people you'll ever meet, and a great proponent and promoter of the sport and of her program. She was terrific. She's really going to be missed, isn't she?
Yeah, she is. Was hired at LSU in her early 20s and the late 70s. Fought for women's sports in a time where they were really kind of mocked and not taken seriously. And really, in the last decade, LSU gymnastics has become a big time thing in Baton Rouge. I mean, people go out and tailgate. They're putting 10, 11, 12,000 people in that place for every meet. It's a family. It's a great family event. The kids love it. It's a quick in and out. You can get in and out of that place in 2 hours, and the gymnasts that she's coached over the years have become local stars and great great models for young girls and for people all together. I mean, I go to those meets sometimes and I look at that beam, Kenny, and it's 4 inches wide, and you think that these girls leap into the air and flip and somehow land their feet on that thing and pull off miraculous athletic performances. So yeah, she's been and just a huge fan of LSU. You've seen her at the football games, you see her at the basketball games, and everywhere. And so yeah, she's really a casualty of COVID. I think she would have coached maybe another year or so, but hey, at almost 70 years old, you know what? I don't want to deal with this year, so I'm going to retire, and that's what happened.
Follow him on Twitter at Jacques Doucet of WAFB in Baton Rouge. Jacques, listen, thanks so much for the time tonight. And again, as I say every night, let's hope we're seeing games sometime soon.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me. Enjoyed it.
You bet. Thank you, Jacques. That's Jacques Doucet of WAFB. We'll